Dang it, I'm sorry.
Misfire Wednesday afternoon.
This is my famous face. You've even got that on video. Oh, are we still rolling?
Yes, we're still recording.
Oh, welcome. Hello. And yeah, I don't think we can use that.
Yeah, we can. Just roll with it. Just keep going.
Oh my goodness.
We're living in the moment. We're living in the present moment.
We are living in the present moment, and then we are accepting all that is. I am Mary Van Alstyne. We are here on the Inner Journey, where we talk all things human, such as emotion, embarrassment about my little faux pas in the intros, fear that I feel when the camera goes rolling sometimes. And I am here with my very, very good friend, Mr. Robert Morales.
Hello. Thank you.
That is the goofiest intro.
It was very awkward, but you know what? It's very, very kind of like insightful on the topic that we're talking about today.
Yeah.
You know, it's like, I mean, we screw up in life so much, and you know, we have these misfires. A couple weeks ago we talked about image. We try to put on this facade that everything's perfect, but this show is about imperfections and embracing that.
That was definitely an imperfection.
But it was a quirky, cute one.
And the funny thing is, that gives you a good insight on me and my goofy nature, because I went full on because I thought we were going to delete it, and I thought it was going to be in the past.
No, it's in the present moment.
It's out there for
It's currently in the past.
And now it's in the past.
Now it's in the recorded past.
Yeah.
You can't get away from it ever again.
Ever. Oh, I'm excited to see that.
So we're here every week talking about emotions and the journey of emotions, really trying to understand emotional intelligence, how to help us help you, and really on this path of self-discovery, you know. And as we've come, you know, these many, many weeks we spent together, you know, I've enjoyed and so much embraced the fact that I've been able to share so many moments with you.
Me too.
You know, and I get to be myself. I get to talk about just endless emotion shit that drives my family crazy with somebody that is driven and just as crazy as me. So I want to send my gratitude towards you.
Oh, thank you. I received that, and I send mine right back. I love being crazy with you.
We're crazy together.
Yeah, and I feel like we learned so much just talking about these topics. You know, we brought this to you know, do what we could to help even one person maybe shift the way that they show up in their world. And the more that we spend time together talking about this, the deeper my understandings go, and the more ahas I have, which is just a beautiful gift all around. So thank you.
Yeah, and it's really nice to not feel alone. I think so many of us, you know, we talk about negative emotions a lot, you know, and I think the focus is more not necessarily positive, but in that state of just being present. You know, and sharing in these many, many spaces that we've had, you know, it's really nice to have and share in a moment with somebody very similar to me. So that's where we're at. So today we're talking about the present moment. We're talking about everything that is existing in this present moment. You know, not about what happened 5 minutes ago, which was kind of quirky. Maybe not 5 minutes ago.
Yeah, a couple minutes ago, whatever it was.
But forgiving ourselves enough to like, hey, you know what? I'm goofy. I'm stupid sometimes. I say some stupid shit that I regret, but I'm just me, and people love me for that. And the one thing I can maintain is my consistency in that. So I'm going to be as goofy and stupid with you all day long, because guess what? You're just as goofy and stupid as I am.
Oh, for sure. Yeah. Well, I no longer feel the need to put the mask on. Like, I mean, in previous days, I would have been like devastated if you would have put that out. Now I'm like, yeah, whatever. It is me. It is like, this is life. And the more that we give ourselves the permission and the opportunity to do things like that and get over ourselves, like that gives other people permission to do the same, you know, and show up. And, God, how freeing is that, right?
It's very freeing. And so, again, today's focus is the present moment. So we have to always live in, I guess this topic is kind of a strange one to kind of explore, because it's like, oh, how do you live in the present moment? You know, because so much of like pain is delved in the past, and that's where you learn. Those experiences of pain propel you to understand the area and the things around you to avoid, you know, because obviously if you've never learned to not walk in the middle of the street to get hit by a car, then you're subject to being hit by a car in the future. So I mean, there's, you know, or
burn yourself on a stove. Like, if you never learned from that, never remembered that, you know,
did that.
I did. We've all done it. But yeah, you would have no present moment, because you wouldn't be able to draw on those and grow and learn how to go forward in the future without getting harmed or killed, or, you know, or even how to treat people. So definitely the past is a useful thing. However, I feel like too many times in life we get stuck there. especially if we've had some kind of trauma, some kind of bad experience, or even positive ones. I know a lot of people who live in the past. Remember the back in the day when the golden days, you know, or the golden years. And I'm like, what about now? I had a person tell me like, you know, he was talking about, he's like, when do you feel like was like the highlight of your life? And I'm like, right now.
I'm still alive.
No, right now. I don't look back at any point in my life and go, God, I wish it was then. I wish I was still in Hawaii. I wish I was, you know, in that one relationship and I had this body or whatever. It's like, that's done. Why live my entire life there? You know?
We do that with relationships too. It's like, remember when we used to have sex and, oh my God, we used to do it in the car. Now you barely even touch me, you know, or like, you know, remember when we first started dating, you know, you would do that thing that would make me smile all the time. And now it's like, all you do is give me shit about how I didn't come home in time, whatever. Yeah. You know, we do that with relationships
I caught myself just recently doing that with my partner. It was like, and he brought it to my attention, which is the beautiful thing about having someone that's on this journey with you, you know, to be able to like bring awarenesses to you, because that's that moment when you get to shift it, right? And I was kind of doing that. Remember when, you know, this, and I kind of missed that. And he was like, he's like, don't do that. Why would you put kind of a sad connotation on something that was so beautiful? Leave it what it is, and let's create new memories. And I'm like, holy shit.
Yeah, because we all know the beginning of a relationship is all flowers and butterflies and everything else. And then that kind of diminishes. You know, for a guy, it's like, well, I've spent $150 every date we went out, and now that we're living together and now we have a budget, it's like I can't go and lavish you with flowers and
I need to go on a $150 date.
Well, it's inflation, man. There's a lot of shit's going up right now. Oh man, I went and had lunch. It was like $100.
Oh my god!
Inflation is getting up there.
It is, and you know that's the thing is like, there's a lot of fear generated about that too. The other part of that coin of living in the past is living in the future, and what does that often generate? Because we're so programmed to look for what could go wrong, right? Yeah. We're so programmed to determine the possible obstacles, because that's just part of how we're wired. But it's like, okay, why do we want to look out there all the time and focus on that if it's creating worry and fear, right?
Well, that's definitely like news, right? It's like,
God, that's
watching the news is like, fear, worry, the recession, the economy, gas prices. You know, it's like, oh my God, like bad, and you're like, oh my God, we live in a horrible world. But then when we're sitting here, it's like so I want to recognize that we're probably in a recession. Gas prices are up, eggs are up. You can't go, buy, a $50 chicken nugget meal anymore. It's like $100 now. There's so many things to worry about, but yet in this moment with you, Mary, it doesn't seem to exist.
It really doesn't. And that's the beautiful thing about being in this very present moment. Yep. And I think too, like I might get a hard time about this, which I do often do. I stopped watching the news, listening to any news or reading the paper or reading anything about 20 years ago, right? I have never been happier, And the funny thing is, like, I'm informed on what's going on in the world. It's not like I have my head in a hole, but am I dwelling in this, right? Yep. And that's what media thrives upon, is that fear. And what is fear? A focus of what could happen, what could go wrong, what, all the news is about is drumming up fear, because that's a very powerful thing. People get addicted to that.
But don't you think we need that too?
It doesn't exist right now.
But are we getting into that yet?
Yeah, no. Do we need what? Fear?
No, so thinking about these things. So like, okay, obviously if I live in the present moment, I eat my burrito, my carne asada burrito, just like juice and full of fat and whatever, grease and shit and stuff in there. I'm like, oh, man, Mary, I love this fucking burrito. I'm living in the present moment,
I don't have to think about the future because, or my weight or my health. Yeah.
I don't have to think about cancer
I mean, that's called, you're a little insane, right? Because
there's a little bit.
The truth is, like, we're going to continue living. There's a present moment now. There's a present moment now. There's a present moment now. Like, I'm not saying, when I talk to people about this, and I talk about this quite a bit, it's been my mission to become very present in the moment. It's not that we're not seeing that there's ever a future beyond now, right? I mean, it's set goals. Be informed about what's going on in the world. What we're saying is don't live there. It's good to know these things. It's good to have a concern for your health. And that, we don't know if we're going to exist in the next moment. So let's eat whatever and let's do drugs and let's, drink ourselves into oblivion. No, it's not that. That's not what we're saying. And I think that's how it gets misconstrued in the message a lot of the times.
Well, it becomes an excuse to do whatever the hell you want. Right?
That too, yeah.
You know, and like I said, eat this massive, Filiberto's burrito, and like, hey man, Mary, you told her to live in the moment. I don't worry about my weight because I could die tomorrow from a car crash.
Well, yeah, that's a very irresponsible and delusional way to look at it, and I think that people often look for that excuse to have that delusional, instant gratification, pleasure-seeking thing, part of ourselves satisfied. But what we're talking about is very different than that. It's not ignore the future. That's ignore the future. Ignore that you're going to live another 5 minutes or 10 years or whatever. Ignore the fact that there's a recession out there. Spend all your money right now. That's irresponsible and delusional. That's ignoring the future. We are saying don't live in the future, right? Because what happens if we're sitting here enjoying a moment together and then all of a sudden you're freaking out about having to go to the grocery store later and how much money that's going to cost you and how much... Are you really here with me anymore? You're literally... in the grocery store, pulling out your wallet, feeling the pains of paying the bill. You're not here,
correct,
right? And that's what we're here to kind of talk to people about is like, how do we do that, right? It's not that we're physically in the grocery store, but our energy, our attention, our everything is out there in the future. And that's where we're living. We're and so how do we bring ourselves back? Like, how do I be here with you right now?
Well, and that's the thing too, is that usually being in the present moment is usually being in the present moment with somebody else.
Not necessarily. So? I'm constantly practicing present moment attention by myself, which I enjoy quite a bit.
You don't get that anxiety like after a while, like, hey, I'm too far alone.
Company. I am so cool to be. I absolutely love that, but that's also been part of my mission is being comfortable being alone. Yeah. So, but definitely I think it's a good practice because when we're alone is when we tend to go off into the past, into the future more often than when we're with someone else. So I think to me, it almost seems easier to be in the present moment with another person. And that's a good place to start practicing. Because I can tell you so many times, like I can point out so many times in my life when I haven't been in the present moment with someone, and I'm very aware of it now when it starts happening. But at first, it's interesting to notice. You start catching yourself all the time, going, "Oh my God, I was in the grocery store just now," and you're like, "What?" Like, "Oh my God, I was just 5 years old again," And it's like that's literally what we're doing, right? Yeah. Pulling ourselves out. We're robbing ourselves of an opportunity to enjoy this little breeze of air on our skin right now, this smell right now, the company of a good friend, and we walk around and next thing you know, we're 60 going, what happened to my life? I feel like I just woke up and I'm here, like that's what we want to keep from happening. That's what we want to avoid,
and not gain the weight.
Yeah. Like all of a sudden I'm
damn it, it's my burrito. That's some tasty shit sometimes, I will say that.
I will tell you that I often eat that without the tortilla. But that's the way that I eat. I am allowed to do that. So
I know Violet gets mad at me when I get the burrito versus the bowl, and I'm like, man, once in a while, tortilla is fine. Once in a while,
everything.
I don't eat it every day. Mm-hmm. Actually, Chipotle probably could, but I'm just saying I don't eat Chipotle every day.
Yeah, exactly.
I'm usually eating Polish.
You have to live a little, right? Have the burrito sometimes.
Yeah, but we go back to that part. So the first thing is awareness, right? The awareness if you're feeling pain, or you're feeling worry, it's probably because you're not in this present state.
Yeah, they say that if you're feeling any sort of pain or if you're feeling any sort of worry or anxiety or fear, then you're either in the past right now or in the present right now. Because right now, unless someone's actually, I'm stepping on your foot, you shouldn't be feeling pain. Or if I'm screaming at you, right, you shouldn't be feeling pain. And if you're sitting here and this mic really likes snagging on my hair today, but if we're just sitting here and you're feeling pain or you're feeling fear, then you gotta, that's it. That's your trigger, right? Wolf, where am I at right now? Because a lot of times we're wandering off and we don't even notice,
No, I know. But again, like if you're in those moments of isolation and you're like, oh, I wish he would have, I wish this would have happened. I wish you're brooding in the past.
Yeah.
And you're not living that present moment because you're ignoring every other emotion, every other thought that could get you somewhere else.
Yeah. And that's when you've become a ninja master, when you're able to be with yourself and really notice what you're feeling in the moment and really notice when you're going, because it's often when we're by ourselves that our brains just go. I'll be cleaning and all of a sudden I'm like, whoa, where have I been the last hour? You know?
Yeah, I do that a lot.
Yeah, and so that's the ninja master move, is to like master that when you're alone.
Yeah, and the trick too is like, okay, you have to be mindful. Like if you want somebody in your life, you have to be mindful and not worry about their feelings necessarily. Be concerned about, you know, where their state is in relation to you. If you want a relationship, you have to recognize that this other person has feelings and this other person is going through these things. Yeah. And they have their pain is equal and their worry is probably just as much. But again, last week we talked about having reverence for people, having that time to and that space to give, you know, some patience, not only to yourself but to somebody else, especially if you want them in your life. You know, so part of that is the awareness, but not worrying about somebody's feelings, but be concerned. So, you know, the thing I get with Violet all the time is I don't spend enough time with her. You know, but I'm driven. I want certain things out of life, so I have to recognize that I'm selfish in some capacity. But at the same time, if I want this person in my life, I do have to recognize that I do have to set some time aside, put some time away so that we can spend it together and be present there for her.
Yeah.
And not be worried about work stuff.
That's
and
the
that's
biggest
a trick.
key.
Yeah,
that's the biggest key. And that's so often what we do, even as parents, as spouses, as employees, as clients. You know, it's like we really need to learn how to be with someone when we're with someone, right? Yeah. It does no good. I remember a very pivotal moment when I was going through my divorce and I had just gotten into, you know, a new career after staying home with the twins for a couple of years. And, you know, I felt like this obligatory, like, sense that, like, I need to go spend time with them and as much time with them as I could. But I also realized I was really struggling on getting by and adjusting to this new life. And one day I was just watching them and I thought, I'm here and I'm not here with them. Yeah. I'm just a shell of a person who's living and stressing about how I'm going to do this, that, and the other and plan the next day. And I'm not even being with them, you know? And it was that point when I decided to, when I'm with them, I'm with them.
Do you think part of that too, and I think sometimes, especially parents do this, they'll fight over kids just for the satisfaction that they either won or two, they needed somebody around, like, just to make them feel better. It's like almost having a dog.
Yeah.
You know, sometimes we buy a dog just to make us feel better.
Yeah.
To kind of, you know, fill in the emotional space. But we don't really buy a dog to service the dog.
Right.
You know, like, hey, I want to introduce this being in my life. He's going to bring me joy. Yeah. But I also have to make sure I, you know, feed him right, take him on walks, take him on.
That's a whole nother thing of, like, parents being emotionally dependent on their children to fill some sort of void.
So possibly next week.
Yeah, we'll see. that happens a lot, and that's a very personal one to me. Yeah. But yeah, that's it. Is like, how can we be with someone and be with them versus just like a body with me, right? Yeah. I feel that very clearly when I'm with someone and they're not with me. They're off somewhere else. And now that I've trained myself to become so aware of that and become so aware of the present moment, I'm very keenly aware when someone is checked out, and I'm also very keenly aware of when I'm checked out.
Does that having the show kind of help with that too? Because like doing this show. So, like, you and I are in this room, and there's nobody else. Right. We're just, like, caught in each other's thoughts.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
I guess this is good practice for us, too.
Totally. And anytime you get a moment to practice something like that, it's like the world is this big playground where you get to play games all day long. And these games can be mindfulness games, you know, the power of now games. It's all about learning and constantly taking little moments as opportunities to improve or change or better or learn about ourselves. Well,
and because both of us have the same goals, at least in terms of this show and what we're trying to do, we're trying to connect with people. And so we're sharing the space because the goal is common. And I think that's probably one takeaway, is to find that person, especially the person you want to be in your life, and share in that space, is to have that common goal with them. Yeah. Because if you're in a marriage because you don't want to be alone, and the other person wants to find love outside of their parents, it's like you're in two different realms. And is that relationship going to really, manifest and change over time? Is that relationship going to grow if you're selfishly caught up in your own pain and they're selfishly caught up in their own emotions? It doesn't really mesh. In terms of this show, we're both on the same page and we're both of the same goals. And so I think also really coming down to deciding, what is your passion and what is your direction? Yeah. And does somebody align with that? And can they align with that?
Yeah.
And when they don't, it's like, okay, the time's over. You know, we're beyond this present moment. We've grown apart, which I hope you never leave me.
Yeah, like I don't ever think about, what's... I
don't want to go anywhere.
I won't. But I don't ever really think about with that. I just trust that everything that's working out is going to work out. And that's a lot, that's consistently being in the moment and getting the experience that things are going to work out. Like constantly being aware of that, right? And constantly pulling yourself back to the present moment as much as you can and moving away from living in the future of worry. And then the more you do that, the more things are going to work out. And then you're going to have little evidence for your bag. And that's going to work out again. You're going to have some evidence for your bag, right? We survived the last market crash. Everybody did, And it's like we're just collecting more evidence for the bag. But then the more we bring ourselves into the now, the more pleasure we're going to experience. I mean, I'm actually really enjoying the feeling of that little fan blowing on my skin and that my little oil that I'm smelling. And it's like, I wouldn't even notice. How many times have you been somewhere and not even noticed a smell or, the wind? Now I drive down the street and I can smell blossoms of flowers. What kind of, that's a beautiful experience as you're just driving down the street doing something normal because I decided to be right there, right now, Yeah.
So. And then making the decision and how you're connecting with it, because you could be sitting in the middle of the city and listen to the traffic and you're like, oh, I can't believe this traffic.
Yeah. Yeah.
Or sit in the middle of the city and it's like, oh my God, that kind of sounds like the ocean.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. I daydream like that all the time.
So it comes down to deciding too, like what your perception's going to be and what your emotions are going to be. It's really a decision.
Yeah, moment by moment.
And then obviously the people around you, if they're like, oh, I hate this traffic too, they just confirmed something negative, Oh
yeah.
And recognizing that too. But I think in terms of the last piece, because we have addendums all the time.
Addendum number 1.
Addendum number 1 was being honest.
Can you tell we're in real estate?
Addendum number 2 was recognizing that your perception and the people around you also confirm that perception. Yeah. But the last piece, because we're over on time, by the way.
Are we? Okay.
Is gratitude. We talked about gratitude.
Tips. How to bring yourself, how do you find this moment of now?
Yeah, tell me.
So the tips on that would, I think, be to practice gratitude, which we talked about so much. And if you want some gratitude practices, you can go back and watch some of our previous shows. But because, it's been scientifically proven that if you're in a state of gratitude, you cannot feel pain. You cannot feel fear. Gratitude is what brings you here to the present moment. Another practical application is like I do something called resourcing myself. If I'm feeling overwhelmed and I'm really like, okay, I'm either way too stressed about the past or way too freaked out about the future. It's like ground yourself, right? How do you do that? The 5 senses. Your 5 senses are right now. They'll bring you to right now. So do things like touch your skin, right? Or, drink some water or smell like my props. Smell your oils. I just smell this all the time. It's like touch your hair. It's like what brings you right here, right now. And you'll notice if you practice that a couple of times. Yeah. They teach this in kind of trauma therapy. It's like bring yourself right here, It's like, remember, you're right here. You're not there. And then so these 5 senses reality resourcing tools can really help to bring us. But I think the number one thing is finding gratitude every day, every moment, because when you're in gratitude, you are here now. Yeah,
because you could basically go and smell something. You can go and touch something, but you just don't do it to do it. You do it to appreciate it.
To appreciate it, to remind
share gratitude,
yourself, that feels good, right? Tickle, 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 that feels good, right? And to notice the sensations. Yeah. Don't just, you've ever felt yourself and not even felt it, right? But the point is to feel it, to really smell it. What does it smell?
To really hear it, and then again, take a position on what that feels like. Like if you smell something, you're like, oh, instead of being disgusted by it, instead of embracing, like, oh my God, so it's like, oh, this is what it smells like.
This is what it is.
It smells like something I've felt in the past, and oh my gosh, I'm really connected to this in this way. Being gracious about those things, whether it's touch, the smell, or the hearing.
Yeah, I love the way this tastes, or look, here I am, I'm in this room.
Look around, or even like to that example, I really don't like the way this tastes. It tastes a little nutty.
Yeah.
But you know what? I'm thankful that I can actually taste, because during COVID, some of us lost our sense of taste and smell.
And that was so weird. But So find some gratitude in that. Bring yourself here right now, as much as you can, as much as you remember. Your life will just be fully transformed.
Absolutely. So what did we learn today, Miss Mary?
Oh my goodness. We learned that the best place to be is right here, right now.
With Mary.
We learned that I just got a little sense of panic thinking about the fact that the beginning of this video was me totally screwing up our intro.
Oh, I forgot about that.
I just
That's in the
slipped
past.
away to the past. I just slipped away to the past and got, but anyway, I hope you enjoyed it, and we hope to see you next week.
Yes. Until then. The Inner Journey. Rob Morales, Mary Van Alstyne, here every week talking about emotions, journeys. Please leave your comments, questions, and then drop a like if you like what you're hearing, and then comment, and we'll get back to it next week.
Bye.
Adios.